Okay, so I can kick things off. Thanks, everyone, for joining in today. We're also recording it so that we can share it with others who were interested, but probably because of time reasons couldn't make it. So today we have Sonya giving us a short talk on her extraordinary journey into cybersecurity. And I'm super thankful to the Women in Tech team for also supporting us with this so that we could, have this set up, and also for promoting the event and getting more people to acknowledge the fact that we have someone like Sonya who's giving us a really great talk today. Um, Let me quickly give an introduction to myself, and then I can hand it over to Sonya to introduce herself. My name is Aish. I head customer success at Maltigo, which is a tool that's used for cybersecurity graphic analysis. And I was very motivated 2 years ago to start a group in Munich that could motivate more women into cybersecurity, because I had this really liking for cybersecurity, but I couldn't find a group of people or a group of women who could talk more openly about it. And every time there was an event for women, it was always these tiny satellite events and never the main stage. And my big motivation was to get more women into cybersecurity and feel and have a main stage event. And in order to do that, I realized that we need to have more openness about the topic and get inspiration from epic women like Sonya, in terms of what they're doing and how they're doing it, what was their journey like, what learnings did they have, what failures did they have. And that's kind of where I started the group. Right now, the group is around 50 people strong, which is quite cool because I do get like a lot of feedback from them as well. My goal is to have more and more, not just generic high-level talks, but also something that's more highly technical as well for those for the more seasoned people in the group. And that's kind of where all of this began. So without further ado, let me hand it off to Sonya, and I'm very excited for the presentation she has in store for us today.
Thanks, Aish. Let me just share my screen. Cool. So, hi everyone. Thanks for having me tonight, and welcome to the extraordinary journey into cybersecurity. So I'm Sonya. I wear dark hoodies and listen to synthwave music. So I'm a legit security engineer. Jokes aside, so Aish invited me to tell more about my journey into security, because full disclaimer, I don't have a CS degree. So yeah, started with a different path. So the start of my journey started in Saudi Arabia with that computer, which is an MSX MPC 200. This is from the Japanese brand Sanyo. And I was in Saudi Arabia because my dad was working there as an expatriate, and this was my first experience with the world of tech. You could see at the top you have 2 slots for a cartridge on the right where you could play games. This was also my first experience with games, Konami games. So yeah, also discovery on that side. Also, I discovered the floppy disks, shows my age as well, and the big monitors, and yeah, all of those. So happy time, but also the blue screen of death. Yeah, this is my first experience with programming. I was around 6, 7, and I was just like dabbling, like really not knowing what I was doing, not really having feedback from it. But yeah, just trying some commands and see how it goes. After that, the journey continues when I moved to Tunisia, and during high school, this is where internet became a little bit more popular, and obviously website like MySpace, where you could play with the CSS and think you're a great webmaster because you could change the color on your page. And after that, I graduated from a business school in France. So I had a degree in international management. I went back to Saudi Arabia. I worked for the French government. I also tried entrepreneurship, but I had my own company. Then I went to Singapore, where I continued to work also as a consultant for less than a year. And then I decided to go to South Korea. And it was in South Korea, actually, that I moved to the tech industry. So I was quite addicted in having really great challenges. One of them was learning Korean, because why not? That's an interesting one. So I studied Korean language for 21 months, went from beginner to advanced level, and graduated from the Sogang University, which was the university from the previous Korean president, the female president. And I was working for consulting companies in Korea, and they were actually asking more than just having their websites. They're actually asking me to create websites. So this is just example of wireframing, designing website, but also I had to implement them, to host them, to maintain them. So this is where I had to go back seriously more into programming. And this is also where I was starting for a new challenge, because I've always been driven by challenges. So this challenge was actually to go back to programming, and also keeping in mind that 7-8 years ago, we didn't have that much online resources as we have now. So it was a bit challenging to find good resources. So I did a little bit on Codecademy, on Dash, on Khan Academy, all these online resources. But I find it wasn't really, I wasn't really getting anywhere with that. And also at the same time, funnily enough, this happened. Mr. Robot, the series, was also one of the reasons why I moved to tech industry. So disclaimer, it has nothing to do with the scenario or the character. I don't have his condition. I don't have any issue with my dad, but it was more where I was in the period of my life where I was questioning my own career as a consultant. And also the irony is that 3 years later, I was actually working in cybersecurity. So I don't know if there's something on that side. But yeah, so I sat down and decided, is it a hobby or is it a proper career switch? Because obviously you have different mindsets on that. So as I said, I sat down and started to set goals and define a roadmap. So I did find some paper from that period where I started drawing some sort of road mapping and the technologies that I needed to spend more time, and also because I didn't want to waste time. Don't forget that time is a resource; it's not infinite. So I actually had to focus on a specific one. And also an important one that I was to not procrastinate. Also, keep in mind that you are your own enemy on that. Usually push back to the next day. But I try to be really disciplined, stay focused, and avoid what we call rabbit holes. Because usually when you start learning programming, you'll go on one article and then it will end on another article, and then you'll end up on those rabbit holes. So this is why I reiterate, set goals and define a roadmap. This is really important. Also avoid the tutorial heaven and buzzwords, because it's not going to get you anywhere as well. But what I would recommend, and what I've done, which was really great, is to do some research and focus on what you really need to learn. So how would you do that? I actually went on recruiting websites and started typing the kind of job that I was looking for and the locations. So I was targeting the UK, Canada, and the US. And at that time, it wasn't security engineer, it was software engineer, but it's quite the same. So I've just done that yesterday, looking on the Indeed's website with security engineer and put the London location and just going through 30, 50 of those ads and just get the keywords and the kind of skills that they're looking for. And just to have your own list of requirements so you can work on those skills that will make you marketable and interesting for companies. What I've done when I was in South Korea, and also this is for software engineer, I was doing some research on Google search, on Google Trends. Sorry, this is a comparison between the different JavaScript frameworks. So you might be interested in one framework, but if it's not really used in the region that you're targeting, you're going to waste time of learning this that skill. So for example, if I was looking at different JavaScript frameworks, I could see that React was quite popular in Europe, Angular was quite popular in the US, and Vue was quite popular in Asia. So if I wanted to target, let's say, the UK or Germany, probably it would be worth to learn React in that case. Also, one thing that I keep in mind was to stay curious and obviously to upskill with online learning. As I said, the amounts and the resources that we had at that time wasn't really prolific. So this is some of the one that I've used. Coursera, EDX. I was also looking at YouTube because there's a lot of content creators doing really great work on that. Also, what I've been doing is been involved in the community because I find really good things coming from that. So I started with Free Code Camp, which is an online website that helps you learn programming. And actually, Free Code Camp helped me keep me on track and discipline. As you could see with the streak, this is debatable. Obviously, you don't need to do a streak every day, but I was coding every day. This helped me keep the discipline. And there's also a little bit of gamification that push you every time to go back and do a little bit more and learn a little bit more. Also, on that community, I became the local leader for the South Korean chapter in Seoul for Free Code Camp. So every week, we were just gathering and discussing the projects that we were working on, and just like, trying to motivate each other just to progress and improve ourselves. This is also where I started blogging as well. So I started blogging for Free Code Camp. I was doing blogging on algorithms, which you might say actually is quite niche on it wasn't around like cloud computing or DevSecOps or those. But still, I found that those articles were quite popular because I tried as much as I could to start from scratch and bring the reader with me, not only proposing different solutions, but also try to deconstruct the code and explaining line by line in plain English, which is good for people who are starting learning more about algorithms. And I could see also through the medium metrics that it was quite popular. And this is just for blogging around algorithms. So you could imagine if you're doing blogging on a more popular topic, for example. In a year, I actually got around 1 million views just for that series. And as I said, we're just talking about algorithm. So I would recommend to do blogging on some topic that you have. Don't think that it's probably not worth sharing. You might actually explain it in a way that might interest someone in the industry. I also gave tech talks and organized some workshops when I was doing that at Free Code Camp. So funnily enough, this is one where I've done on branding and time management, where I gave some tips on how to learn faster. Also, quick disclaimer, I do polyphasic sleep, so I usually sleep 4 or 5 hours a day, so it kind of helped for me to digest all of the info. But the most important question for us, and also for those people who are attending, was to ask ourselves if this is a hobby. If you want to code during weekends, it's fine, it's just a hobby. Or is it a career switch? Because obviously the amount of effort that you will put is different. So yeah, I was doing that kind of presentation, and I gave some tips around reading documentation during commuting, also watching videos at 1.5, 2 times the speeds, those kind of tips that you could apply. And the most important thing that I started is to brand yourself. I've actually applied things that I've learned when I was a business consultant and tried to implement it to myself, because usually developers are quite introverts and they probably don't think about branding themselves, but they should, because this is a good way to attract recruiters and just brand yourself. So I started with creating portfolio. That's a good way to showcase the projects that you're working on. Also, if you're blogging, you can also put the links on it to different skills, things that you've learned, just to capture all of this within your portfolio. Obviously, for an engineer, your GitHub or your GitLab profile is quite important. So I would recommend, now that GitHub has implemented that README file on your profile, is to use and populate all the sections to just describe what you're doing, what are your hobbies, or if you're involved in any communities or doing open source. Take that opportunity to add it on your GitHub profile. Also, don't forget to pin the repos that you're most proud of, that you want to showcase. You don't need to have full green streak. Also, that's debatable. That's just me coding a little bit every day. I'm probably also doing it because during Halloween, they changed the color schema, which is cool to have it in orange. But this is just to showcase to the recruiter that you're kind of like passionate about coding and creating projects. Also, what I would recommend, spend a little bit more time on documenting your project. So you have the README file, it's just markdown language, so it's easy to put a couple of screenshots just to explain a little bit more about the pet project that you've been working on, how you can, if there's anyone curious about it, how that person could actually fetch it and just install it on his or her machine. And also moving on to your social media. So on LinkedIn and Twitter, you can also start to brand yourself and be consistent and have that professional image. So for LinkedIn, for example, there's this new creator mode that you can enable where you will have the number of followers at the top, but also if you talk or blog about anything interesting, you can use those hashtags to actually put it at the top. Use the featured section and the activity to showcase what you're doing, and also any volunteer experience that you have. So if you're blogging, if you do open source, if you participate in an organization, do put this on your LinkedIn profile. And also use the fact that you can add media. So should it be pictures or videos, all of those, just populate the sections on LinkedIn. It makes also more appealing for recruiters and for your network. And you might ask, so after all of this, that's great. You've been working on your brand. Did you get any results? Actually, yes, I did find a job through LinkedIn, and I actually didn't have to go through the hustle of sending hundreds of CVs to get a job. I was lucky enough to actually have the recruiters coming to me through LinkedIn. As you can see, there's actually big companies, and this is not to brag, it's just to show you the results of all of this from Amazon, from Google. So you had really big companies approaching me, which was great to see all of the results from the efforts that I've put for branding. So I got a job, moved to London. I work in fintech. And during that time, I decided to participate to open source. Open source is a great way also to hone your skills. I would recommend to look at, for example, Hacktoberfest every October each year. This is an open source project where you could do 3 to 5 pull requests. I can't remember the exact number, but if you participate to open source projects, at the end of the month, you can get a free t-shirt with the Oktoberfest logo on it. But also you have really good guides on open sourcing on GitHub. So I've decided to volunteer at an organization called Pride in London. So I've been there for, I volunteered there for 4 years, recently left in March for some reason. But yeah, so when I volunteered at Pride in London, they didn't have a tech department, they didn't have a tech team. So I was the tech lead and security manager there. So I had to actually create the team. I had to start from scratch. I also had to do tech choice, which is quite daunting because you need to start from scratch. So I've decided to go with the Jamstack because it was a static website. So we contentful Gatsby and Netlify were querying through GraphQL. And I also set up a CI/CD pipeline and have that DevSecOps methodology using different tools. I'm not going to go through tools because that's not the purpose of the that talk, but just to show you that you could also do that for your pet projects, because all of these tools are actually available on the Github Marketplace for free for public repositories. So I would strongly recommend to go and have a look at that marketplace, and they have different, you could see like code quality, code review, security. There's a lot of categories with really good tools, and they're free for public repositories. And then you can start creating that pipeline, which is easy because you just need to target the repo, and it will, depending if it's natively integrated, you could start creating that pipeline. So this is how it looked like. This is the tools that I showed you previously. This is how it looks like, and this is how it looks like, for example, on Slack. Also, same, you don't need to be in a company to use Slack. You can start your free workspace and start doing what we would call chat ops. So basically, it's linking all of the tools to GitHub and start creating those integrations and see how they react. So that in that case, this is for GitHub. So when a developer will push the code, you'll get that notification, and you can also see in real time the colors. So if there's any issue, and if your developers are on that specific channel, then they can see, oh, for example, DeepScan and Server Cloud for security is failing. Let's have a look for that specific pull request. And obviously, because we're talking about open source, and also for your pet project, don't hesitate to put the little tags from those tools at the top of your README file. It's also good to showcase that you know how to use those tools, but also to showcase the health of your projects. So here you would have tools around quality, around security, building, hosting, so different areas that you have when you build a project. Also, a good way to showcase those skills is if you don't have the opportunity to use project tool management like Jira, that's fine. You can still use the GitHub boards. So it's the same principle. You can create epics, you can create labels, and then have that methodology. You can use Kanban board. That one is the automated one. So we don't need to touch the card, actually. It's on the pull request. If it's a review or if it's merged, the card will move automatically on the board, which is quite cool. Also, some security hygiene where you're doing open source. Don't forget to enable 2FA. Also, for the member repository permissions, what I've done is the list privilege. So the base permission was none, and I created specific groups and then allocated users. And from there, those users have access to a specific repos. So this helps you also to have that kind of security hygiene in open source. Also, I've protected the master branch, obviously, because you don't want the developer to delete your master branch or your main branch. Also, don't forget to add code owner, and you can also require the branch to have all of the tools that I've showed. So they're required. So when the developer will push a pull request, it will go through all that pipeline. And if one is not passing, if you don't have the little green tick, then it failed the builds. So depending on the maturity of your open source project, or if you have any threshold, this is an interesting way also to have that DevSecOps methodology. So you might ask, this is cool. Are you still doing all of this today? Well, short answer, yes. I don't have a fancy portfolio anymore. I just have some sort of like a business card website, which is less fancy than the one that I used to have. But still, even if I'm not working as a software engineer, I still do think that it's important as a security engineer to have that portfolio. I'm also still blogging, so I still blog for Free Code Camp. I'm doing walkthrough on Hacktoberfest machines. I've also launched 2 initiatives called Epic Women in Cyber and Epic Women in Tech, because I wanted to showcase all the amazing women working in tech and cybersecurity that needs also to be known. So yeah, this also 2 initiatives that I launched. And this is not to brag, but this is just to show you the momentum of all the effort that I built during those 5-6 years, which actually led me to one conference, one event, and then it's like it snowballed. Actually, you could see that I've been talking about gaming awareness for InfoSec Kids, that I was talking about open source and CI/CD pipeline with a Prayer in London study case, that I've been talking about other security topics, cloud, and all of those. But there's also something that we need to talk, is what I call the elephant in the room, your best friend, the imposter syndrome. So to be quite honest, I still have imposter syndrome at time, less than when I started. What I do to beat that imposter syndrome is when I arrive in London, I try to, and this is obviously pre-pandemic, I try to attend as much as I could events, conferences, also women in tech, women in cyber events, just to have that safe place, and just start creating that network. And if I have any questions, if I wanted to network with that industry, this is actually a good start to build up your confidence moving forwards. So this actually helped me beat the imposter syndrome a little bit. So this was my journey. And I also wanted to do a quick overview of what is cybersecurity and why is it important. So let's dive through a quick definition of cybersecurity. So cybersecurity is the techniques of protecting computers, networks, programs, and data from unauthorized access or attack that are aimed for exploitation. And obviously, it spans over different areas, including application, network, cloud, access control, all of those. So let me go through a couple of cyber attacks. The first one is this. You might probably be familiar on those websites where I have that 500 page. And apparently today we also had one. There were a lot of 500 page going with the Fastly CDN outage that we had earlier. But this was GitHub in 2016, where there was a series of DDoS attacks that were launched against DNS servers. And so services like PayPal, Spotify, Twitter were down. So you might ask, what is distributed denial of service attack? It's a good question. So you would have an attacker that would try to zombify a certain number of hosts and to redirect it to a victim server, and it'll try to overwhelm the traffic of that server, of that website, and exhaust all the requests and the resources, and ultimately the website can't respond to legitimate requests, and you would have that 500 page in that case, which is quite scary. How it is occurring. So a good starting point is Shodan. Shodan is like the Google for IoT. It's a search engine for internet connected devices. I did a quick search with the keyword webcam, and this is all the webcams that are connected available publicly, which is also quite scary. And just to showcase that, I've clicked on one of them, and this is what actually you could see. Obviously, I reducted the IP address, but this is one CCTV outside CCTV in Canada. And you could obviously imagine that if all of those IoT didn't change their credentials and just use different credentials, you can actually use them to have a DDoS attack. So this is a good starting point for the attackers usually, which is quite scary. So another cyber attack, and quite common, is well known, is ransomware. That is the WannaCry ransomware pop-up. So you might ask, what is a ransomware attack? So basically, you would have the attacker, they'll send a phishing email, and the user will read that email, click on the link, and on the background, you'll have a malware that will unpack and execute. And it will encrypt your data, and the attacker will want to have some sort of monetary reward to give you the key to decrypt the data. And usually they will ask for Bitcoin. Also to keep in mind that this is following some sort of the cyber kill chain. So the cyber kill chain is used by professionals and attackers. You wouldn't go through all of the phase depending on the attacker or the payload, but usually you would usually start with the Reconnaissance phase, where you tried as much as you could to gather information on your targets. Then you will weaponize the payload and you will deliver it. So in that case, for the ransomware, this is where you have that exploitation phase. It will encrypt your data with installation. And then you have command and control, where it'll try to pivot different devices. If your network, for example, is flat, might be an easy one to propagate into. And then you have actions on objectives. So for the ransomware case, you probably have to pay for the ransom, or the attacker would like to exfiltrate data to sell them. And this is just to show you the impact of the ransomware WannaCry. It was more than 100 countries that were impacted by it. One last example for a cyber attack. This one is called sextortion. So basically, the little blurred bit at the top is the password. So the attacker will say that they got your passwords because they've been also they've installed something on your device that allowed them to record yourself going to adult websites, doing naughty things in front of your webcam, which is obviously a scam. But because usually phishing and this kind of extortion emails are based on emotions, on feelings, on fear. They'll also blackmail you, saying that they will send the video to your employer or your family. So if you don't want this to happen, you'll have to pay for a Bitcoin. What I would recommend is go to websites like, for example, Have I Been Pwned? And obviously, instead of I Live Women's Cybersecurity, enter your email or your phone address and see if your account has been part of a data breach, and you can start actually recycling your password and setup. I would recommend passphrases. Try to have strong password or passphrases in that case. So how a data breach would occur? So usually an attacker will have that reconnaissance phase where he or she would look for weaknesses that they can exploit. So two types: they can do social engineering, or they can try to find weakness within the infrastructure. And when they're in, they will exfiltrate the data and resell the data. This is just to give you an example of a few of the companies that suffered from data breach. Also, if you like graphs, this is another one that I recommend visiting: World's Biggest Data Breaches and Hacks. So it's usually quite common. You could see in the news every week there's data breach occurring. So this was for the big cyber security attack. Let's file down to the web application attack and how 22 lines of code actually impacted almost 400,000 victims. And this was the case for British Airways in 2018. They suffered a data breach. So their customer have been affected, and they said the stolen information included personal and payment information. So the payments went through its main website, was affected, by also their mobile applications. So Android and iOS both were affected. And the payments were affected from August 21st to September 5th. So only over 2 weeks, that was the attack. So you might ask what happened during that time. So we could see that the customer data were stolen directly from payment forms. And usually a security researcher will look like for patterns to see if there's a similar behavior in precedent attack. And that was the case. We've seen the same type of cyber attack happen when Ticketmaster UK reported a breach, and the main suspect was Mage Cards. So you might ask, Mage who? Who are they? Mage Card is a consortium of malicious hacker groups who target online shopping cart systems to steal payment card information, and this is known as a supply chain attack. So you might ask, what was the entry point exactly to target the website? And it was the JavaScript library called Modernizer, version 2.6.2. And this is how it happened. So basically, you would have the Modernizer library, and at the end, you'd have the piece of code that tampered with that data. So you might also ask why they're putting it at the bottom of the script, because usually they don't want to break the functionality, especially with JavaScript. So this is often a technique that is used by attackers just to put it at the end of the script, and they're sure that it's going to work. Also, the server sent last modified header, which indicate the last time a piece of static content was modified. So at the top, you could see the original one in 2012. At the bottom, you can see the one that has been tempered by MageCard in 2018. And that is the piece of code that has been used, only 22 lines of code. So if this is a bit blurry, you don't understand that piece of code quickly, that's when a user hits the button to submit the payment. The info from the payment form is extracted along with their name and sent to the attacker server, because they've also registered the endpoint, baways.com, and this you could actually check it out online that they've properly registered that endpoint. And this also show all the recon phase while they were prepping for that attack. They took some time to register the endpoint and to prep that piece of the snippet of code. What about the apps? Because you might think that the apps is using a different kind of programming language, and you're right. But even if the portion of the app is native, the majority of its functionality loads from web pages from the official British Airways website. So if you're familiar with mobile programming language, so you would have Kotlin Java for Android, and you could use the web view to inject JavaScript, Or for the iOS, you would have Swift or Objective-C, and you can use the WK web view to inject JavaScript within those pages. And this is the page that has been compromised. And if we look at the source of that web page, it's exactly the same CSS and JavaScript components from the website. And we're back to the same issue because that's the same modernizer library that they were using. The end of the story is British Airways has been fined through the ICO and under the GDPR for data breach. So let me give you another quick example of what else can go wrong. So credentials, tokens, environment variables on GitHub. We all know that GitHub is housing thousands of publicly accessible keys, tokens, passwords in the search results. I've done a quick search with the keyword API keys at the top left. This is some of the results that I'm getting back. Obviously, not all are valid results, but you know that you might find keys for services, including Google, Twitter, Facebook, Twilio, Stripe. And if you have a look at some of those files, you can see that the developer pushed it on the repository, realized it, and it's too late because GitHub is version control. So they tried to delete it, hence it's in red. But you could see, for example, at the bottom that they removed the one from test and put it the live one. So you could imagine actually that API key is from their production environments. But as I said, it's too late because this is on GitHub, it's version control. So you probably need to prune the repository and push it back without the key. There's also quick fixes to prevent that. Usually developers, if you're doing pre-commits, if you're using pre-commit hooks, you can add a task to scan if there's any API keys or credential push before pushing to GitHub. And if that's the case, it will prevent you from that. And also that's not a fairy tale, it actually exists. That's a good example with Uber that pushed a key on their publicly accessible repository, and it allows an attacker to access an internal Uber database and steal personal details on about 50,000 drivers. So as I said, quick fix, make sure that you should have private repositories for your company and not having publicly accessible, but also implement pre-commit hooks, having tools that flag those credentials. Also, COVID-19 impacts on cybersecurity. So cybersecurity projects often languish due to budget constraints, scarce resources, or because they're just lower priority. But the COVID-19 pandemic has pushed many of these initiatives to the forefront where they're getting traction, obviously. This is just to give you an idea of last year when COVID-19 was hitting in Q1 2020, the amount of spam messages, malware, malicious URLs just dedicated around that theme of COVID-19. This is one of the emails that I received, was it last year? This was someone impersonating the World Health Organization asking for help. I also got emails around false tests, also around COVID-19. So some key takeaways for that, I would recommend to lock down the supply chain. So have some tools that allow you to flag if there's any vulnerability in your dependencies. So you could use free tools from the Github Marketplace, like Dependabot, for example, on GitHub. You could also use WhiteSourceNIC or any others. Identity and access management. As I mentioned, if you're doing open source project, don't forget to lock down your maintainers with 2FA and with users and groups and permissions. Don't forget to do patch management. This is also regarding the ransomware WannaCry, because this was based on Microsoft vulnerability. So do you patch your devices? Security awareness and cyber hygiene, obviously, for your end user. Threat monitoring. Also, IoT security. I've showed you with Shodan. It's quite easy actually to see what is publicly available and also use it against servers, for example. Zero trust, and the last one, which is a big one lately, social media. Be mindful of what you're posting online, because it might give some intel to attackers. Finally enough, last year, we had an instance where a Zoom meeting was actually, you had the number and details that were shown on the picture and giving away that meaning that has been fixed since then. But yeah, just be mindful of what you're posting online, because it can give some intel to attackers. Finally, if you want to learn more about security, that's cool, and it also means that I didn't scare you. So good starting points, I would recommend OWASP, the OWASP Foundation. So OWASP stands for the Open Web Application Security Project. It's a consortium of foundation of developers and security researchers creating tools and guides around a lot of different areas. You might be familiar with OWASP with the OWASP Top 10, but I would strongly recommend to look at the other guides that have produced around mobile testing, around IoT, around Docker, around API. All of those, they're really a lot. They're covering everything. And the good thing is all of those guides and tools are free. So yeah, I strongly recommend to have a look. If you're more the hands-on type person, I would recommend to have a go with the OWASP Shop, which is a Node.js application from OWASP. You can also have a go with Try and Hack Me if you're a beginner, because Try and Hack Me is doing really good walkthrough with step-by-step indications. If you feel more confident, then you can jump on Hack the Box. They also recently launched their academy. And you can also start creating your home lab with Kali Box. So you can download VirtualBox and have the Kali box on it and start learning the tools that ethical hacking is requiring. For example, Nmap to scan ports, Metasploit to try some payloads. Obviously, this is I'm saying that this is for Try and Hack Me and Hack the Box. Don't download a Kali box and hack the companies that's not ethical. You need to be ethical. But yeah, those resources will help you learn more about ethical hacking. A good other resource is the Web Security Academy from Forswigger. So you can sign in, and it will keep the your progress for different learning materials and labs, and it's entirely free. Once you gain more confidence, and you probably want to earn a little bit of cash on site, so I would recommend joining programs on Background and HackerOne. They also have their own university and academies, but you can be allocated to programs, and you can actually test your skills against real companies, obviously under NDA, and also doing ethical hacking. If you like listening to podcasts, I would recommend Darknet Diaries. It's quite an interesting one. If you're more of a YouTube person, this is some of the person that I follow, and also depends if you're more on the hands-on, like Hack the Box-ish. So the cyber mentor John Emmons, IPSec are the ones to follow. If you're more around open source security tools, Stoke Namsek and Tom Namnam are also good. And because there are also a lot of women doing really good content on YouTube, I would recommend to follow some of them, like Insider PhD. She's doing testing for GraphQL and API testing. Cybersecurity Mag, she's doing also security courses. Elisa Knight is doing testing on IoTs, really interesting. Rana Harel, she's doing Hack the Box, also walkthrough. And I'm also, as I said, doing some walkthrough for some of the machines on Hack the Box. Also, if you're already working in a company and you're interested by security, I would recommend just go to your security team and ask if they have a security champion program. This is a good way to bridge between the security team and the developers, and to learn more about security, and potentially to have an avenue moving to the security team. That's what I've done when I was working previously at the fintech company. I was sitting next to the security team, and I was listening to what they were doing. I was really curious about their tool and platform and all that methodology. And they've actually asked me if I wanted to be a security champion. And yeah, the rest is history. I've just jumped 100% to the security team after that. If you want to have more resources, I've gathered some more on that article on Medium called Keep Calm and Become a Security Engineer. I've collected more YouTube channel, blog posts, and some of those. And also because I'm running that initiative, Epic Women in Cyber, if you're a woman working in cybersecurity and would like to be showcased in that initiative, don't hesitate to reach out to me. We'll make it happen. And to finish on the key takeaways, Important thing, if you want to get into the industry, get involved in the community. So attend events, attend conference, try to look for organization within your area. I would also insist on developing your brand, which is quite important if you want to attract recruiters and also if you want to create your network. Soft skills are important, obviously, around communication, around teamwork, around of those. And also, if you don't come from a tech background, you can still have transferable skills, including soft skills. Be positive. Obviously, I know that cybersecurity can be daunting sometimes, but try and keep it positive. And don't forget that sharing is caring. So if you learn new things, don't forget to share it. Should be on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on the social within the community. Finish with my motto: just get secure, be secure, and stay secure. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sonya. That was a really amazing talk. I love the way that you transitioned from just like where you started, what you're doing, all the things that others need to do to get into the field, as well as like touching on, I think even in the talk that I had with Regina, I spoke about WannaCry because it just amazes me, the extent of which like one small mistake can have the kind of impact that it can have. So yeah, thanks a lot for your insights. Do we have any questions from anyone in the audience?
I have one, if you could hear me. I'm not sure. Okay. First of all, Sonya, thanks a lot. That's quite inspiring. Also knowing that you didn't have a formal education in computer science, but you excel so much. Thanks a lot for that. I have two questions. One is, right now I'm also in a good place in my career. I'm trying to learn new things. And there's obviously a lot to learn. And there's also a lot of resources to learn from. What I'm struggling now, or also my peers, is that we find it hard to navigate between different available resources for a particular technology. And even before that, we struggle to decide on which technology to start with. And so, for example, we were looking at machine learning and we realized that, okay, once we start getting into that, it takes us a lot of time to complete and be at a state where we are comfortable. So I would like to pick your brain on understanding if you have any thoughts on how to pick the right technologies to focus on, and when do you know that, okay, now you're done and you can switch to learning something new?
What I would recommend is probably what I said before, is probably test your market. So depending on the website where you can find job, like I was mentioning Indeed, if you type different kind of job and see what kind of technologies they're asking, and see like what is the top 3 in your region, and see also obviously if it's an interest for you, because it's good. It's one thing to take the top 3, which make technologies that make you marketable, but it's also another one to make sure that it's a technology that actually interests you. But yeah, so you could start from there. And also, as I said, just sit down and try to have a roadmap with breaking down some steps. So if it's something hands-on, you can start creating some small pet projects and see how, and build your confidence upon on that point. Yeah, this what I would recommend.
Okay, thank you. Maybe one last question. So you showed that in your career you had quite a lot of offers from different companies. And how do you advise someone to pick the right company? I suppose while you're trying to excel in your career, it's also important to pick the right company in terms of technology or the culture or location. Do you have any tips there?
Yeah, I guess it all depends on the person. What are your own interests? Like for example, for me, I mentioned Amazon and Google, but at that time, and also because the imposter syndrome was really high at that point, so it's probably that's why I didn't follow up on those. But yeah, as I would say, it depends on the interest. If you have a company or an industry that you would like to work in, so that's probably one thing to start from there.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Vishnu. Anybody else with questions?
Yeah, I have a short question for Sonya. Thank you so much, Sonya, for this talk, because it's amazing what people actually do with GitHub, like putting their passwords on there. Okay. What was your biggest challenge in your way to becoming a cybersecurity expert?
I guess, well, the main challenge is, as you said, Vishnu, is the amount of things that you need to learn, because it's a constant evolving ecosystem, and it can be daunting. And you have that imposter syndrome kicking us, like, are you probably not going to be the smartest person in the room, probably don't have the answer to all the question, which is fine. Actually, when you're in the room and you don't have the answer to questions, it's fine. You're not the dumbest person in the room. But yeah, I would say the amount of things that you need to learn in that industry is just insane. And obviously, if you're curious and if you're keen to learn a lot, you can be distracted, as I say, with rabbit holes and all of those. It's just, you wake up in the morning and you have all of those news, like data breaches and the incident that we had this morning, and then it's ongoing, it's nonstop. So yeah, I would say keep focus. If you have an interest in, I don't know, let's say cloud or DevSecOps, keep that industry, and just create your roadmap, break it down to small steps, like what kind of programming language do you need to use, what kind of technology or tools you're using, those kind of things, and it will keep you, just keep you in the right direction. They just don't try to run several horses at the same time. It's just not gonna work.
So I have a question that's moving a bit away from the cybersecurity part. So you mentioned that try to build your brand, and that's something I struggle with personally a lot. One, because but not only because I have a horrible eye for design. So like, I'm just awful at figuring out placements, and like when I see, for example, your deck, I know that you've gone through a lot of iterations to get to here. So what would you recommend for someone who wants to build a brand but is just like has no design instinct?
A good one is try to attend events or watch, because now you can't, obviously with the pandemic, watch videos on YouTube of other talks. And if you find something which is interesting design-wise, just take some notes on it and try with deck. I'm using Keynote for that, because I wasn't happy with the editors. Maybe I'll use another one, I don't know, but I was quite happy with that design. But yeah, I would recommend just watch some events online, or attend if you can physically, just to get that inspiration. That could be a good starting point.
Cool. I have a bunch of questions. I have some more questions, but I just want to also ask if anybody else has some questions. Otherwise, I'll shoot on, because I have lots of questions. Okay. So obviously a lot of the work that you've built up to is self-taught. So in the industry now, through Epic Women in tech, Epic Women in cyber, how many of those people are actually self-taught versus how many are ones who kind of, from the A levels knew that this is what they want to do and kind of got into a degree and so on? What's the percentage distribution between the two?
I don't know on the top of my head, but I've seen quite a few of women in tech and cybersecurity. They used to work in different industries, and for any reason they decided to do that career switch, because they probably they had that interest when they were younger, but they didn't have the opportunity, of maybe because it's a career where they can find it's getting high reward. It's rewarding, also for recognition, and if they want something a little bit more challenging. So yeah, I'd like to answer your question. I don't have the numbers on top of my head, but from the women that I've interviewed for Epic Women in Cyber and in Tech, I had quite a few number that were coming from totally different industry. They've actually brought all those skills, the transferable skills, and used them in cybersecurity or in tech in general.
That makes sense. And so far we've heard about all of the really nice bits, and so I'm going to touch upon the not so nice bits. Everybody has their struggles. What were your biggest failures during this journey, and what do you recall the most every time you look back on your imposter syndromes, or you look back on how far you've gotten? What's the one kind of signpost for you that helps you take the right decisions?
Yeah, I think it's when I was starting doing it in South Korea, seriously, when I had that mind shift to 100% like moving to programming. So I was literally coding, like, as I said, I'm doing Polyphasic Sleep. So I was coding several hours. There are some times where I just wanted to flip the computer because I couldn't get it, because at some point your brain is like, stop it. So I had that fatigue. I also had some sort of burnout. So it wasn't really healthy, but I've decided to move to the tech industry. So I tried to push myself and challenge myself on that. I don't know if it was the right way, probably not in terms of burnout and mental health. But yeah, and also I think the imposter syndrome, because when you're looking at where you're at, and let's say in my previous workplace, senior developers, for example, you're always comparing yourself to more senior people. So how can you go to that level? But then when you start going to events, you start talking to people, then you realize that those senior people probably don't, they're not keeping up with the technologies. They're there to just keep probably like legacy applications, and are not learning, for example, like React. And you might have actually that advantage if you learn that technology that will bring you up or do that jump.
Okay. And a question that's likely on everybody's mind: what is polyphasic sleep, and do you recommend it?
Polyphasic sleep is, so you actually divide your sleep in several breaks during the day. I actually do 4 or 5 hours and do a quick cat nap of 20 minutes during lunchtime. So that's usually what I do. Would I recommend it? I don't know. You probably need to test it and see if it works for you, because I know some people who tried polyphasic sleep and they were really tired after that. So I'm used to it. I've started when I was in high school, so it's been more than 20 years now. So I'm good with that one. It allowed me to get a little bit more time, for example, to do training or doing anything else in my life. But yeah, it depends on the person. Yeah, so I wouldn't recommend it. It's just try it for yourself. It's just NC. Yeah.
Yeah, fun fact, I read that I think Nikola Tesla, and there were a lot of also Leonardo da Vinci, they all the creative spurts were strongest when they were polyphasic sleepers. And I think there are a couple more scientists also to add to that list. So yeah, I've been very curious generally about the, it's very nice to actually see that there are actual people there and it's not a myth.
It did work for me. Yeah.
Okay, great. All right, so I think we're at the end of time anyway. We will be sharing the recording, but before we stop, I also want to let Regina speak a bit more on women in tech and what they do, because I think they do excellent work in also not just supporting women in technology, but also bringing or helping people like me to bring people like Sonya into the forefront and spreading the word. So I'll pass it over to Regina before we close off.
Thank you, Aish. Yeah, it's getting dark here. Sorry about that. What is women in tech? We talked about it before. We had Aish on our Speak Up last month. So we kind of connected there, and now we are here. Women in Tech is a non-profit organization. We were founded in 2019, so we are getting about to 2 years now. We are a German-based Verein. So non-profit is a gemeinnützige Verein. So you can become a member if you want. Just go to our website. It's here on the screen. And what we do is we connect women in different kind of tech areas. So not only in cybersecurity, but also in just general engineering works. We have some software developers in our midst. We have, I think we even have architects. So quite a lot of branches there. And we do several events in the next few weeks and months. So just check out our website. Yeah, and actually you can find everything on our website and follow us on social media if you like. We just think that there have to be more women in tech. We have to have more female role models in all the tech fields so that young girls have a kind of idol to look up to have someone who can show them that even as a woman, they can achieve everything they want if they just want to. So similar to Sonya, who just took that chance and just went for it. That's actually the nicest message today, to just start and don't get in the way of things, even in your head. So yeah, maybe Sonya would like to add some advice for young girls who want to start into cybersecurity.
Yeah, sure. It's an interesting field. It's challenging, but if you're curious and like to learn, yeah, this is a good field. And also, don't let anyone tell you that you can't do it. Just do it. Yeah, you might actually find a really good career path for you. Just join us. Join in cybersecurity.
Awesome. So thank you, Sonya, for the amazing talk. It was a real eye-opener also in terms of tech stack, in terms of just so many topics. I just need to like process it. But I will also send out like a short summary of everything that we discussed for those of them who can't see the entire recording. But I strongly recommend it. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much, Regina, and thank you so much everyone for attending. If you have any questions, you can write me on the meetup group, or you can write Regina through Women in Tech. As you said, everything's on the website. And if you want to be featured on Epic Women in Cyber, Epic Women in Tech, check out the blog. It's super cool. I read it all the time. And reach out to Sonya on LinkedIn, or sonya@owasp.org. I think that was the email. Yeah, we have to send. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.